What's up, guys? Welcome back to the long anticipated, long awaited episode 44 with our good friend Neal, the 199 guy. Neal, how is it going?
Hey, it's Saturday night. I feel like, between Nate the Great and Matt Alexander and the 199 guy, we should have like a part on Saturday Night Live or something like that. What do you think, right? We
I
can
think it's a good
roll.
idea.
We
Oh
can
yeah.
roll. But hey, it's an honor to be a part of a show where you guys are based in an area that I enjoyed when I was at SLU, but it was also actually the second part of my journey. So who am I? I'm Neal Bendesky. I'm a sports marketing and sales executive that was a prisoner of my job. 1 foot in the grave. I was 450 pounds. You guys can relate to that. When you talk about be better, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't better in a lot of areas, right? In all due respect, but you know, there was as a in my book, Never Too Late, I talk about the fact that as a sports executive, you're so committed to your job. I mean, listen, the hours, Matt, that you work, in the cardio area, Nate, what you do as a police officer. I mean, these are very, time consuming gigs, and in my particular case, people think, well, you're in sports, right? First of all, you make a lot of money. Well, no, the athletes make a lot of money, right? But, as an administrator, you really get an enjoyment out of doing things. So my journey actually, when I was 450 pounds, was started at the University of South Dakota. And before I got there, I lived in South Florida for 23 years. So I had a really good sports career in terms of administration. I was the assistant athletic director at the University of Miami, won 4 national championship rings. So that's pretty cool.
Insane.
And then
Awesome.
networking is, as I teach a public relations class at Boston College, I always talk about getting involved and volunteering and networking. So I'm a PA announcer. I did stats for the networks. So over the course of time, I started meeting people, and then I was able to be in a real high ranking position with a startup, expansion team, the what was then called the Florida Marlins. And that was almost a 4-year gig. And then the Heat called me as a vice president. And when Riley first came in, 30 years ago, that's when I came in. So it sort of shows my age. But at the end of the day, pounds were starting to go on. My wife Laura and I, who I met at the Olympic Training Center, I was an intern getting my master's in sports administration. I was in a space where, goodness gracious, man, I was representing healthy, situations, but I didn't look the part, right?
Yeah.
So I end up going, to a situation. It's kind of wild. Wayne Huizenga, who was the owner of the Marlins, the president came in to me one day and he says, "Mr. H really wants to help you." And I says, "Well, that's great." He says, "Why don't you go to Duke and you go on that rice diet?" And I go, "No, no, no, no." And actually, there was a very good trainer. He actually did more games consecutively when he was in the game. Larry Starr is his name. Then what's the guy's name? Cal Ripken, right? And he was amazing. But he had some Ohio University roots, and he connected me with an exercise physiologist and a nutritionist, dietitian. And I started to understand a little bit, but not enough to really put myself in a better space. And then I was a victim. We were a victim of identity theft, so it was pretty crazy, right? I mean, that's about as low as you can go. I was actually doing an event for the University of Louisville, trying to raise money for an extension of their stadiums, because I started my own company in 1997 called Game Plan Inc. So Muhammad Ali was there, and we did what we did, and I went to go pay for it because that's what I do, right? At the Trump Sonesta Hotel in Sunny Isles, and my credit card got denied. I go, what's up with that, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
it ended up being that we had identity theft, and it just destroyed us, right? So I ended up hooking up with the athletic director at the University of Miami at the time. Now he's at BC, Blake James, and he said, Neal, the only way you're going to get back in the game is get in the game. Now, at this point, I'm over 400 pounds, right? And, my job interviews probably wouldn't have gone very well if I didn't have a reputation, because I was the co-founder of what they call NACMA, National Association of Collegiate Marketing Administrators. And even with that, I applied for 17 jobs. I got 7, interviews. And the place I ended up was the University of South Dakota. Are you kidding me? Right? I mean, I told people I was part of the witness protection program. Why would I go from South Florida to South Dakota?
Right.
But you know what? In this journey, as we describe it to your listeners, Matt and Nate, it's really a scenario where having support and love really makes a difference. And the people in South Dakota kind of embraced me, as the 450-pound guy. But that's what it was, right? And, I have a trainer there, Bruce Fishbaum. He really helped me out a lot. And things happen. I won't go into all these details, but I got a nice call from Chris May, who's still the athletic director at SLU. And it was an opportunity to do some things, for their athletic department for the Billikens. And I was thankful for that. And, there was a picture that I shared with you guys. It says, show up. And it was me running at Parkway West, or walking, excuse me, at 450 pounds. And I did that every day. And for those of you out there, like, are on your current, I'm going to, go to the gym and I'm going to get better, right? That's what's going to be, right? Guess what? That's only 20% of the equation. But I didn't know that at the time, right? So I end up walking, like I said, every day, even rain, snow, whatever it was. And I lost 35 pounds. One of my friends is actually now the winningest coach in the history of indoor football. Kevin Guy's his name. And, he got me an opportunity to come here. And there were challenges. It's like when you have the kind of resume I have, sometimes people look down on you, or I can do it better, or whatever it was. And it was my job to find corporate partners. And one of those partners was Orange Theory Fitness. And I was kind of intrigued, not only for the workout, but what they talked about, which was the community of love and support, right? So as it played through, I'm in this situation. And, the long story short is that for the first 5 weeks, I failed. Here I am, 415.6. That was my official Orange Theory weight. And I'm like, I'm not losing any weight. What's up with this? So I'll give you a little laugh. I was, coming out of a workout. I was wearing, this is an extra large top. I was wearing a 5X, especially made by Omar the tent maker, right? And somebody said to me, a little 3-year-old boy, he was kind of my guardian angel. He was waiting for his mom, little Max. And he said, "Are you Santa Claus?" My initial reaction wasn't PG-13, I promise you, right? But I had a trainer there, Kyle Settles, and we talked about things. And I said, all right, man, it's time for me to learn about nutrition. And I was embarrassed to tell people my weight. I learned to be more vulnerable over time. And even recently, there's things that have happened. But, the bottom line is, to answer the question is, here I am, a sports executive that's been from Florida to South Dakota to Missouri, and now here in Arizona. And over the course of time, I feel like, God came into my world and put me in a space to get better. I mean, this is the Be Better podcast. So, that's kind of what, happened. And, for those people out there listening, it really starts with motivation. Somebody inspires you, like what you guys have been doing, your 44th, congratulations, episode.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, the fact is, I'm going to tell the listeners now that these two guys, if you're not following them, follow them, because they're about helping you with your journey. Your journey is not just about going to the gym. I'll certainly give you a lot about that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was a pleasure to at least share my story, because that's kind of the space I was at. Now, when I tell people I've gone from adversity to triumph, you know, what was my transformation? Well, think about this. So I end up going from 450 to 415, came to SLU, right? You know, that was that number. Then I came here, failed for 5 weeks. And then I went on this incredibly godly miracle. I tell people, if you're listening, I say, how many of you have seen a miracle, right? And I say, based on the fact that I lost 199 pounds, I ended up surviving on August 2nd, 2016, sudden cardiac death.
My gosh.
And then more recently, after doing what I did, rolling, you know, and I'll give you the equation in a little while, but the bottom line is, and I got cancer. And, you know, and part of, you know, now I'm a little bit better, but, you know, more recently in mid-November, I was not at a good weight. I was not coming on shows like this. And I was excited to basically, you know, see if I could fix myself. You know, radiation, which is what I had, gave me gut health issues. My hormonal shot caused me to gain 50 pounds. You know, before that all went down, I got COVID, you know, that created a weight gain. I was like, no way, man, this is not cool. I mean, I've done this. I got a brand. I want to help people, but, you know, I wasn't looking as good as I did. Right. So, you know, your picture that as the promo, you know, where I say, run the race of your life, you know, whatever that race is, you know, through lifestyle transformation. I didn't feel that part, you know what I mean? Especially as many times as I go to Orange Theory and run in the races that I've run, 36 races since my heart attack on August 2nd. So all that said, I was like, holy crap, what's going on here, right? So I put myself in a better space. I've lost 31 pounds since mid-November, and you know, I'm feeling, you know, better. Thank you. I'm feeling better about coming and telling the story. It's like I mentioned Muhammad Ali earlier. You know, there was the Marlins scenario, then there was the, you know, the scenario here with the 199 guy. So now with this certain last transformation, you know, Muhammad Ali's story, you know, he was the only 3-time world champion, right? So I'm saying I'm going to be the world champion of weight loss, right? You know, 3rd time, right? So that's kind of my current mission. But along the way, okay, catching things up, I lost over 190 pounds. So you might say to me, Nate, why did you pick 199, right? And there's 2 stories relative to that. Now, first of all, is this where you guys want to go as I keep telling these stories relative to that? Or is there anything specific you want to ask me as we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Neal, I feel like I'm watching a movie. Like this is, I'm so, I mean, I'm just like, I don't know, the story that you are able to just describe to people. I mean, I really am enjoying it. I'm sure our listeners are enjoying it too. We can take this direction wherever you want, but you know, I'm just sitting here thinking of like some relation to like your story, right? Like Matt and I both, as we mentioned before, we both have our own kind of weight loss and fitness journeys. I mean, we both made tremendous strides. I was 274 at one time. I weighed myself yesterday. I'm 210. I'm trying
awesome,
to.
dude.
I'd like to be 215 with a little more muscle mass. That's kind of my goal. But Matt, I mean, I know you're up there as well, and you are a freaking nature.
350.
Yeah. So Matt was 350, and now he's a healthy boy as well. Matt's strong as an ox. I know because I just haven't moved some shit for him. But you know what I want to say, Neal, about your story is it just kept playing in my head while you were talking. Like I truly feel like, and I read this somewhere years ago, and it's just becoming more and more relevant in my opinion. Life isn't necessarily about the destination, man. It's about the journey, right? And like, you know, the destination is death. And like nobody really wants to rush to get there. But you know, the journey is going to be trial, tribulation, success, failure. I mean, that's just how it goes, right? I mean, you basically have won the toughest battle somebody can face multiple times.
Yeah.
And then you're still fighting that battle, right? So like
of course, I mean,
it's still there.
What's the alternative, right? You just said it, right? Do you want to go in the 6 foot and under league or what? No, I'm not ready for that yet.
Not today, baby.
There's leagues
Not today.
above ground that I want to promote.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, like, I mean, you just faced so much trial and tribulation, like a lot of our guests have, man. But like, you know, your story stands out to us directly because Matt and I have both kind of fought these battles, and we're still fighting these battles. You
Still
know,
fighting
like,
the battle.
we're
The
both
everyday
still
thing.
trying
We
to
all
be,
will.
yeah.
But you know, one thing that, and thank you for what you just said, and both of you, and thank you for sharing your story. I mean, you know, that reinforces to the, you know, the listeners that, you know, this is real life. It's like I had written down here, transformation starts with a single decision. It's never too late to take control. Prioritize your health and inspire others by leading by example. You are the miracle waiting to happen. So I told you my story about being a miracle. What I didn't finish in that story is I get into a conversation. I say, everybody on this call is a miracle waiting to be unfolded. I said, how many of you seen the movie Bruce Almighty? And what does Morgan Freeman say, you know, playing God to Jim Carrey? He basically comes up, if you want to see a miracle, you got to be the miracle, right? And it's funny in that movie, but it's real. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody is a miracle waiting to be unfolded. And that's what the purpose of this podcast is. Be better. Mm-hmm. You know, it's hysterical. One of the other things that we'll build on as we get to do this maybe a couple times is when I was first starting out, I had a marketing person. She was very helpful. She knew me from South Dakota. Her name was Rachel. And she said, your first two letters of your last name are BE. So we should do the Be Better campaign, right? And that's what we were focused on. So here's a funny story. So I think I reached, in Orange Theory terms, because I had to do it differently, like 150 pounds lost. And she was in town visiting, and she said, what do you want to do? And I said, and if you look at my book, I think it's chapter 2, it's me hiking up Camelback Mountain here in Arizona, right?
Arizona, yeah.
Yeah. And there were these steps, really, really, you know, like you wouldn't think that with my crazy knees that I would be able to do that, right? But we're halfway up the mountain and getting to the saddle, and there it is, a rattlesnake. And there's these guys like playing with it, you know, they're taking pictures, and I'm going, are you guys crazy? This, you know, we're in Arizona, there's rattlesnakes. We're in a place where there's no medical attention going to be right there, right? And Rachel goes, what do you do? What do we do? What do we do? And I go, listen, we need to be determined. We need to be fearless. And we went right past the rattlesnake and kept on moving. Because, you know, sometimes you reach that point where you're trying to decide, what are you going to do? You know, are you going to, I'll talk about this later. I call it can and can't words, you know. And if you look at some of those situations that come in your life, you either move forward or you don't, right? And it's like the next thing that I had to discuss with your audience today is, you know, think about this. The importance of doing hard things, right? So losing 199 pounds, surviving sudden cardiac death from a hereditary issue, you find your pivot point. You know, I mentioned one of them, but the other one that was kind of interesting is how many of you guys, and now listen, both of you have described your story, right? And I'm sure there's listeners out there, you know, that might put this in the chat or whatever this is and say, how many of you love pizza? Right? Especially St. Louis has that special, you know, real thin pizza. And in my son's case, when he was, you know, coming home from working, you know, from going to college at the University of Colorado, we're still in St. Louis in the summertime, and he ends up working at Jet's Pizza. I love pizza, man. Okay. So dude, I would go there and I would get 2 slices. Pretty good. Now, granted, there's other pizzas that are probably better, but okay. But that's what I did. That's where he worked. and then I would sneak a third, right? And part of this process is called moderation. So in this case, my son Justin, and again, it's in my book, one of my chapter pictures is Justin walking outside because it was good weather that time of year. And he says, Dad, I think it's time for a salad. Right. And I took heed to that. And I like, I even have a friend, you know, in Miami that I'm helping right now. And I've shared with him, it's about moderation. Yeah, there's going to be steps to get in this thing. So it's like, instead of eating 3 slices of pizza like I used to do, I'll eat 2, right? And that's part of, you know, when you get of doing something hard, you know, that's when you kind of realize those things. You know, today
Neal,
I did an orange. Go ahead.
But when how do you, you're very energetic and I love it. And how do you get the, like, and I think you probably talked about it, but can you like articulate the momentum, how to just keep going forward and forward and forward, and you know, you might have a step back, but you just keep going forward. Can you just kind of describe like where that comes from?
You know, wow, good question. Look, you know, when it comes down to, I love my wife, I love my kids, right? And I really felt that my life was coming to an end. I mean, you know, it's like the other guy, you know, you get motivated by different things, right? And when I was in St. Louis, Chris got a guy that is now one of my mentors, Bob Bodine. He wrote a book called The Power of Who, and he also wrote a book about ponying up every day an extra chair in your bedroom and talking to God. And it's not like real religious, but it's something his mother taught him, and it transcended, you know, it really resonated with me. Anyway, answering your question, I would tell you that, you know, you find things about motivation. You find things where initially you get motivated, and this is a formula. First, you get motivated, then these things start to happen, and you get goals, and then you become accountable, right? You know, just like I heard when when Nate said, "Oh, I want to be 215," and he's 210 right now because he's going to add muscle mass, and he knows how to do that. Okay, but maybe a few years back, before he was a police officer, you know, supporting us, you know, in our community, maybe he didn't know that, right? I didn't know that, you know. So I was at this session with Bob Odine, and he kind of really put me in a space where, in that conversation, where he said, I promote people that are healthy. Now, this is a guy that represents the head coach of Baylor that won the national championship. He represents Deion Sanders. He represents, you know, what the coach Fran Brown, you know, at Syracuse, that beat my Hurricanes, you know, to take us out of the CFP. You know, this is who he is. So I came back from that talk, and I put his book in my windshield and I looked at it every day for like a couple years. I didn't do anything about it because you got to do it on your time. You know, that's another, you know, the next thing that I had in my list is the best time to start is now, but that doesn't mean everybody's ready to start now, right?
Right, you're now, it's not right now. Right.
Yeah, and you know, at the beginning of the year, everybody makes these New Year's resolutions, right? And 80% of the people stop after the 3rd week, right? It's just documented. It's what it is, and that's why that was one thing. And then recently, when I started in mid-November, I didn't have any Christmas candy. I didn't have any of those cookies or any of that stuff, because the average person during the holidays gains 15 pounds. So if you're listening out there and you said, wait a minute, I said, I'm going to wait till the start of the year. And then you eat all that you eat in the holidays. And then you start, you know, the first 2 or 3 weeks of the calendar year, and then you quit. What has happened? It's added up. And it's like I say to people, 10 becomes 20, 20 becomes 40, 40 becomes 50. And then, you know what you've done when you get to my age? I'm 67. You know what happens? you get to a space where you can't enjoy your life. You put yourself in that space. And I was in that space. And like I said, Bob motivated me. And I went and met with an athletic director that he had placed here in Arizona, Grand Canyon, Mike. He's a great guy. And I looked at him and I said, the only thing that is keeping me is from being that position, to be an athletic director, is what I look like. I don't look the part. So I ended up getting on the phone, straight up story. And I said, hey, Bob, this is Neal. Remember me from the SLU talk? Oh, yeah. And he says, yeah. And I said, if you remember, I went and met with Mike. You set up that lunch. And guess what? I'm going to lose 199 pounds and you're going to be my agent. Right. And down the road, I went to a wedding in Austin, Texas. He was relatively close to that area. I drove and I met him at his country club. And the funnier story about that is we have a great lunch at his country club and he's pulling away and he's got his second book. I told you, 2 chairs out, and he has his rag top and he has on the license plate 2 chairs, right? Guess what I did? I came home to Arizona. I went to ADOT, whatever they call it, Division of Motor Vehicles, and I basically got a license plate that says 199 guy. And I called him and I said, dude, you're not the only one that has a little creativity and make it rock. So, and I was appreciative of that. Now, here's another relatable story, Nate, based on, as we're putting this together for your group, for your listeners, your viewers. I would say that a lot of people think, because I've been, in sports, that a sports movie motivated me. That's not the case. So have you ever seen the movie that Jeff Bridges won an Oscar in called Crazy Heart?
I know what it is. I've never seen it.
Okay, so he wins an Oscar. So in this particular movie, there's segments, like, if anything I can get across to the group is you look for something and then you surround yourself. You don't do it by yourself, and you do it with a community that gives you support and love. Starts with your family. Then it starts, in my case, with Orange Theory Fitness, because that's a really good group for me. I just celebrated my 2,800 class so I show up and do the work. That's a little more advanced, when you get down the road. But, at the end of the day, this is what I did, from your earlier question. And as we're continuing this story. So in this particular movie, there was parallels between the actor's role and me. What do I mean? First of all, in the movie, Jeff Bridges was a very good country singer, and his name was Bad Blake, right? And Bad was bad, right? Because he was an alcoholic. I was a binge eater, okay? He was told by his agent, if you want to resurrect your career, your life, maybe you should just write a song for one of his clients, in this case, Colin Farrell, who, he was a darling, in that current fictitious world. And so he did. And he wrote this song, The Weary Heart, Weary Kind. And it was really good. So he wrote a song. I wrote a plan to get better.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Then what happens is who's in this space where he writes a song, it's a hit, but he's a warm-up kind of guy now. He's not the featured singer Bad Blake anymore. And he had some issues that, along the way where he hadn't fixed himself totally, just like me. And he ends up performing in Phoenix in the movie. Where do I live? Phoenix, right? Okay. The thing that really is a message. So he comes to a show where Colin's performing the song, and his manager is proud of him, and he hands him what Bad Blake wants, his big royalty check, right? For his first check, right? And he gets the check, And he looks at his manager and he says, I told you there was still gas in the tank. And that's kind of the way we're never too late came in. So, there's other sides to the story. We can chatter about that another time, but I want to make sure I reinforce for what the group here is that when is the best time to start? Well, I don't use, and I haven't to this point, used the D word, diet. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. Okay. And I say this: motivation plus accountability plus sustainability, which I did for 7.5 years before I got cancer, equals lifetime success. Lifestyle success. Sorry, I said lifestyle success. So
I like how it's a mathematical problem too.
yeah, and I use that at the end of my book, a lot of my chapters as a footer, just to reinforce the message. What are you doing, man? You got inspired, you got motivated. Okay, then you started seeing yourself having some success. You modified, your workouts. Maybe you modified what you were eating, and then you started looking at it from a plan. What fits for you, right? And I did that. And I'll admit I did isogenics, which is a supplement. And as it later plussed out, when I went to Mayo and we decided to do proton pencil beam therapy for prostate cancer, they said to me, there's too much sugar in that. And, so I adjusted. I actually use what's called now, this is my Mayo dietitian. It's called the OWN shake. And it's only what you need. OWYN. You can only buy it on Amazon. And because your body changes, as we get older. What I did is a miracle. They did an article on me, People Magazine and Men's Health, whatever. And every reporter would always say, do you realize, for a guy over 60, again at the time, that people don't lose weight like that, right?
No.
At all. So it's like, I just say that now. I want to go down. A lot of people at this time of year get into their, transformation. They get into their New Year's resolution, right? And then some of them go back and forth. So I call this your do words and your can't words. Okay. So somebody that says it's too expensive, I say to you, you're worth the investment. Okay. Somebody may say, I've seen this before. In fact, Tony Robbins did a session the last 3 days, and one of the one of the people that works with him said, well, I want to get better, but I just can't really, because I don't have time. And
I'll make time.
Yeah, exactly. You're too busy. No, you got to make this a priority. Okay.
If you have time for your bad stuff, you can make some good time for your good stuff, right?
And you know what Tony Robbins said? Can you take 10 minutes? Start with that, right? And like again, one of my, I help people that call me to ask me for that. I'm not a medical doctor. I make that very clear. But how many people have you met that have lost 199 pounds, right? Right, and overcame cancer, conquered that, and survived sudden cardiac death, and lived to talk about it. Because when I had the Widowmaker is less than 50. I was doing a TV interview. 30 minutes after the crew left, I fell face forward. I don't remember it. Okay. And this is a funny story, is that they took me to a hospital. Initially, my wife wasn't sure where I was, right? And but when she figured out, she called the head coach of the Rattlers, my dear friend Kevin Guy, and said, hey, can you come over and talk to Neal? So I'm there in the emergency room, and I don't remember anything. And Dr. McKenna was his name. And I said to him, hey, just give me 15 minutes and I'll be fine. And whatchamacallit, Kevin says to Dr. McKenna, he says, tell him to shut the up. He's a salesman. He's staying here tonight, right?
Right.
And you talk about, we all have things, God in this case. And, and I talk about, three, from Bob's book, Bob Odine's book, Two Chairs, you ask yourself initially when you talk to him about, say, does he know my situation? Okay. Is it hard, too hard? You're talking about God. And three, does he have a plan? Well, the thing about it is, he's not going to talk to you when you want him to talk to you. Like, hey, God, can you help me lose 50 pounds? Or can you help me get this job or whatever? That doesn't happen like that. Okay. You got to believe first and foremost. And I started believing, and that made a difference, because guess what? For me to do that interview, which was originally supposed to be on a Monday, the cameraman wasn't available. So he came on Tuesday. I finished the Fox interview because I'd lost a lot of weight at that point. And then this happened. And a month prior, I went, because, we all reach these points. You never know what's in your body. That's another big part of this process, is that why are you doing this? Not only for the people you love, and that's part of my 199 Guy lifestyle platform, but the bigger picture is that you put yourself in a space where you're ready for when it happens. So in this particular case, I was at a charity golf tournament a month before, and I met a guy, J.W. Rayons, who was the, volunteer president of Dignity Health Foundation. And I get to the hospital, like I said. The next day I have the first, you work in cardio, Matt, you get this. So I have my first doctor come in, and he starts talking about putting a defibrillator in me. I'm going, dude, I got plenty to do in front of me. When I had this heart attack, by the way, I ended up 9 days later back in the gym. And yeah, part of my chest was messed up because, they turned me over, and, less than 50% of people come out of it. Less than 10% come on their own. I did both. But at the end of the day, it was a scary moment, because there was Orange Theory classes going on. I'm in the lobby, and I told you the story. But the point is that when you get back to it, miracle again, in that I call my wife, Laura, and I say, hey, call JW. I don't like this cardiologist. I need a good one. And he tells me about this guy, Dr. Deeb, and he met with me and my wife. He came right over. It was great. I was in the right hospital, of course. That helped. But again, that was another act of fate. So that's why I think me being here with Nate and Matt and the Be Better podcast folks, understand that, yeah, I have a lot of energy and I'm excited. But at the end of the day, I'm a passionate storyteller, because I want to help you. I want you to believe that you can go from the couch, to the concrete, like I did, in running races. I can help you understand it's finish lines, not finish times. It's about showing up, okay, and doing the work. It's about, people that say, the ladies that say, well, I have kids. Guess what? Gyms have daycare. Oh, I'm too tired, right? No, when you work out, you're energized to rock it, okay? And then those people say, I'll start on Monday. You know what? Action yields results. So those are some of the things that I like to get across to people. Now, you may ask me, how did you get to 450 pounds, right? How did that happen, right? And I'm going to tell you why. Because fan food is not fuel food. And what does that mean? So I'm working in a stadium or arena like so many staff. And this is one of my missions, by the way, because society has prioritized wealth versus health, right? You understand? So the fact is that they're paying all these players. The owners want to get as much as they can get for what they do, and as they should. But, the bigger picture is the concessionaires want to make money. So they're going to have pizza, hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries, popcorn, all those different things. Guess what? That's what I did. Okay. I mean, people would laugh at me, but when I was at the University of Miami, one of my dear friends who just retired as the Miami sports commissioner, Jose Sotolongo, he would tell the story how Neal could eat because Domino's was a sponsor at the University of Miami. Neal could eat 2 large, extra cheese, extra pepperoni pizzas without drinking any water. Can you imagine that? Right. But that's what a binge eater does, right?
Yeah.
You knock it out, right? And that's what it was. But so fan food is not fuel food. And one of my missions is we've talked about, is not only helping kids, learn what they should eat before they take a test, because if you test better, you get better and better opportunities in your college, whether you're an athlete or not. Okay. And, and the other side of the coin is that what is the evolution of what somebody in sports or even in life goes through? And I called it in my book, CEO cornerstones. So if you think about these pillars, these cornerstones, okay, you're initially the CEO of your life, right? You're starting out, especially somebody like both of you. You guys have been athletes, whether at the high school or the college level, right? And plenty of your friends that have. And what happens in that evolution? I call it your wellness clock. If you're like me, your mother would tell you, eat everything on your plate. And I did, right? And then you go and, you're a parent, right? And the first time it's your turn to bring the snacks after that soccer or softball or baseball game, when the kid's 4 or 5 years old, right? And what happens? You bring a sugar-based drink and a cookie, right? And that's what you do. And then you end up deciding that, okay, maybe I'm good enough, and you go play high school sports. And what did the coach do when you were coming home from a road victory? He took you to Burger King or Mickey D's, right? And then you go to college if you're a really gifted athlete, and you get a smorgasbord, eat anything you want. And to me, it was a formula for me, as many people that are listening could probably attest to, failure, a foundation for failure. So, the first CEO, somebody gets done, being a student athlete, and then all of a sudden, what do I do? What do I eat? What's right? Has they really been taught? And then you get your first job, right? And what are you doing? You want to get involved in the community, right? You didn't just get into a hospital, Matt. You got involved in your community, right? So you're the CEO of your community, and then you become the CEO of your legacy. And what does that mean? I read a book that I encourage people to read called Alchemist, and it's sold millions of copies. And I learned a word in there called personal legend. And all of us seek our personal legend. But what I've learned, especially on this journey, is that it's not about helping you get your own personal legend. It's about helping others find theirs. And that's the CEO of legacy. And then finally, like, Nate moves into a new home, right? And, he's making things better for his family. And that's what you are. You're the CEO of your family. And this evolution is what I've kind of, left with. And my wife, Laura, and I have, we're not rich, nor do we ever live to be that. We wanted to be rich in what we did in helping other people. And we have 2 sons, Justin, who is in his 2nd year at NYU in the doctorate program. And our other son, he got engaged, and it's a longer story, but he got engaged when he was playing baseball, because I was a baseball coach for a long time. And he basically, got engaged in fragrances. So when he came to Arizona State here, he was accepted to Oregon, but, the money was better for him to go here than spend the money on grad school. So he goes to ASU, and he ends up majoring in organic chemistry and French. And he's proficient, and he lives in Paris, 2nd year of graduate school, for the fragrances. So it's like, that's the richness of what we are and what we've been. And that's our goal, relative to what is it about. So, in coming to a close, I guess what I could give you is, what is a good leave behind for your audience for today's episode, number 44, right? Okay.
44.
So, the letters of lifestyle basically spell the success of your journey. And my goal is to create a chain reaction of inspiration, helping others find, listen to what I'm going to say here, happiest and healthiest version of themselves, one day at a time. You can't do it overnight. It doesn't happen that way. So what does that mean? L stands for learn, right? You want to learn from somebody like Nate. I'm sure there were some people in your police group that had a fitness campaign or program, and they shared it with you, and then you figured out your own world. Matt, my wife was telling me that, when she came in with, to the hospital when I had that sudden cardiac death, I mean, I can't imagine what you deal with. Kudos to you for serving your community, in that light, because it's a scary thing for somebody like me. It was, relative to that. And then
it's all about helping others.
Excuse me?
It's all about helping others,
Yeah, it is. And then, it's like I went to 38 sessions after I had my heart attack that the hospital offered, cardio rehab. Mm-hmm. And I was probably 5% of the people that didn't have a zipper, right? And you know what that means. And so it's like I felt like I wanted to inspire those people. So that's the I. F stands for focus. When you show up to work, or when you show up at the gym, or you get ready to cook your meal, you're focusing. E stands for more energy for your life, for your family, for your career. You got the first four. S stands for staying power. You show up, right? T, when you're on a team, what does a coach say to you? Trust the process. So you come up with something and you stick with it, and you adjust to it, when things come along the way. Y stands for you. This is your journey. I'm telling you about mine, but this is your journey. That's why you're listening. L stands for love. You do it for the people that love you, that you love. And finally, E is a double whammy. 20% is exercise, and 80% is eat right. Right?
Amen.
And that's kind of, the scenario as it plays for. So I asked the people that have been diligently listening about a story, and hopefully it brought you in a little bit to understand that it is never too late. Okay. Are you ready to transform your life? Just like, we just made national decisions on who we are going to vote for and stuff like that. It's time for personal growth. In Never Too Late, a lifestyle transformation starts now. No waiting. Break free from the limiting mindsets with a powerful shift. Think about those do words versus the can't words. Think about investment versus too expensive. Think about priority versus being too busy. Think about modifications versus being embarrassed. Think about gyms have daycare. Think about starting now. Okay. So you put all that together. And as we come through this, I wrote a book. And my target audience is individuals seeking personal growth, motivation, and self-improvement, spanning young professionals, because there's plenty out there, midlife individuals, 40 plus, and beyond. This includes those navigating significant life transitions. Listen, you may have a career change. You may be thinking about retirement. You may have some health issue. I had them, okay? You guys have noted that in this conversation. But seeking fundamental habits for optimum well-being. Students aim to boost their energy. I spoke at one of the top sports management programs in the country. I know SLU has a good one. Tassos, is a great professor there. I just traded LinkedIn notes with him because he's been there a while and doing great things for his students. But, the big picture is that, when those type of things happen, I asked the students, there were 27 students I spoke to, graduate level, Ohio University. And I said, how many of you fuel your body with a Gatorade or a Powerade and a bag of chips in the afternoon? Listen, I said, you're going to get ready to do in the, like where you guys live. So this is appropriate. You're in the show me state. Okay. I'm not just talking about the promo. I'm talking about when you get done and you get your master's and you get your first job, trust me, you're going to work 16, 18-hour days. That's just part of life, whether you're in college, professional, again, in my chosen professions. But the bigger picture is, are you thinking that that's going to power your day? Right? I don't think so. So I just hope that specifically Never Too Late resonates with anyone eager to unlock their full potential, regardless of age, and inspire them to do the same.
Hell yeah, man. I'm ready to run a marathon after that. That's awesome, dude. It's
Yeah,
so empowering.
it's just remarkable, like all the tidbits and golden nuggets of information there. Like as you're speaking, I'm just kind of like resonating that to certain areas of my life and just making the connections. And I mean, like, I'll be very honest, like this is gonna sound funny, but like I was after this podcast is over, I was gonna go downstairs and eat a piece of cheesecake and drink some milk. And all day I've been like, do I eat cheesecake? Should I do a protein shake? And I gave up. I was like, for whatever, I'll just do a piece of cheesecake. It's not gonna hurt me. But like after listening and just being able to relate to your story, I'm like, okay, well, like it's these small, consistent changes that are gonna make me hit the next level, right? So like
That's right.
I'm gonna do the protein shake and not the cheesecake, right? So like I can eat cheesecake maybe tomorrow night after dinner or something. I don't know, but you know, I was just so, I don't want to say motivated because that's cliche, but that's what it was, right? Like I mean, I was so
It
motivated
is.
by what you just
Yeah.
said and just inspired to look at
Well,
things a
thank
different
you.
way. So
Listen, this is the book, Never Too Late. Okay,
mhm.
that we're talking about, and it's interesting. I'm glad you, Nate, you said that. Nate the Great. Okay, listen. In order to be great, there's going to be things along the way that aren't going to seem so great, right? And you're going to put yourself in a position where better is better than sometimes being great. Okay, just
Yeah.
make it a little
Yeah.
better every day.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to give you a theme that you already know, but that's why you came up with this great idea. Be better, right? But I'm a marketing guy, so that's what I do. I tell people it starts with your attitude.
Hmm.
An attitude's like a flat tire. If you don't fix it, you don't go very far. In my case, I had a flat tire, and now it's even a little better, than it was. But listen, when I'm done with this, because I wasn't feeling great. You may not know that by my talk today, but your mind sort of puts you in a space where you can't always be on. I mean, let's face it. I mean, that's fact. I mean, if you look behind me, that's me with Jim Valvano. Okay. And the wild thing about life is that my good friend Scott Cephalato was with the Basketball Hall of Fame, and I worked induction, and Jim was inducted for some special part of his career, which is great. And Pam, she's remarried, but she's there. And I'm sitting there next to her, and we had a very interesting lunch. And she's telling me about his note cards and how it's kind of funny, is that you might enjoy this, is that she was dating somebody. And then she said that basically what happened was that Jim asked her to go to the prom, and she had to get permission from her then boyfriend. And after that date, that prom, that wasn't her boyfriend anymore, because he's a pretty convincing guy, as we all know what he did, as starting the V Foundation. But
Right.
He sits up there and he says, cancer may not, save my life, but it may save my daughter's life. Man, I met his daughter. She went to Mayo and in Jacksonville, and she beat cancer. So it did come together. That's
Wow.
a story that a lot of people don't know. But and maybe it's, at the end of the day, it shows you how a little thing can be, so huge for somebody else. I like I said, I teach at Boston College, and I was dealing with one of their technical areas, and the guy told me that he had a friend that fought, his cancer battle for many, many months, and he was getting ready to give up. And I said, Give me his name. Give me his address. I'm going to send him a book. And I did, because, this book and my publisher, Kelly Cole, Books for Athletes, great human being. I appreciate him setting up this opportunity with you guys. And like I said, we'll do this again. But, the bigger picture is that, I hope people are out there realizing that it's never too late. You can do this. Okay. You guys did it. Okay. And you're going to continue to do it because, it's like when I was going through, weight gain, I gained, like I said, 20 pounds from the COVID, 50 pounds from hormonal shot. And I swear to you, I went to go see my radiologist at Mayo and I said, Dr. Regama, the one thing I don't want, because I got a brand, is to gain weight. Right. And, it happened, right? Less than 5% of the people have that reaction. But guess what? So what? What am I going to do? Sulk about it? Like Nate said earlier, something that was positive, that's not my story. My story is to continue to help people realize, you have it within yourself to take control. And I think by listening today, I hope maybe if there's one person that is out there and you can laugh at me, but I did this race here in Arizona and it was, I hadn't run a race in a year. And in my age group, I finished last. Okay. And I didn't care a bit because what I did along the way? I went to people like Nate because I've always done this. And I went up to him. I said, thanks for your service. I would crisscross. I didn't care about my time. And, I was just thankful that I was out there in a corral with people again and seeing this much fitness in one area. That's one of the interviews I did for the Rock and Roll Running Series. I always would say, isn't it unbelievable how many people are, with this much fitness in one area, right? And listen, you go to a sporting event, you see a certain number of athletes, whether on the college or the professional level. But when those weekend warriors have basically rewarded themselves based on their nutrition, then it's amazing feeling. So I hope today we've created that feeling, for other people.
Yeah, you did.
And I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to be there. Do you guys have any parting questions or suggestions or things that we want to say to our group?
Yeah, just real quick. What you said like really just resonates with me because like the reason why we started this podcast, right, was because and it's just what you said, right? To be out there and like I've always said this. I don't care if one person listens to this or a million people listen to this. Like if I could get the ability and the opportunity to change somebody's behavior for the positive, right? To change somebody's life and give them just a little bit of advice or maybe some knowledge or share a best practice, whatever I can do to make somebody's life just this much better or this much better or a mile better. I don't care. But as long as I can be a benefit and this can, translate into something positive for somebody's life, it's worth it for me. Matt and I joke about it all the time. Like we're in the hole for this podcast, thousands of dollars I've spent. I've never made a profit off it. I've never made a dime and I don't give a damn because that's not what it's about. Like I don't give a damn if this thing makes me a billionaire one day or if we're negative $1 million at the end of it. I don't care because I've met a couple of people and have people reach out to us a couple of times where, people have been like, hey, that guy you had on really helped me out and gave me a different perspective. Thank you for doing that. And that to me is worth all the money in the world. So, with what you said earlier, I just want to say, because we're at the end here, right? I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on and giving these fantastic stories and perspectives of, positive outlooks and how people can make these changes. And like you said earlier, man, with fate and God, I'm a religious person myself. I firmly believe we're always exactly right where we're supposed to be at that moment for a reason. What are the odds that out of all the billions and trillions of email addresses in the world, your publisher finds mine? And I never check that email. I never check that email. I have 10 emails. I never check that one. Matt and I were just messing around. Check the email. I thought it was a scam, right? Honestly, I thought it was a scam. This guy was just trying to do some BS. I'm like, Matt, check this out. And I sent it to him. And he goes, that's interesting. And I said, I'm going to call the number just to see what happens. I call and I spoke to him. It's a real guy. And he connects us. Like, what are the absolute odds of that, right? 1 in a billion has to be. And here
Yeah.
we are. Hmm.
Well, listen,
Oh,
I think both of you should, you know, feel so good about what you are doing to lay the foundation, because it's really up to the people listening. You
mm,
know, we can share stories, and as we get down the road, there's like 21 habits that that you could start to get into, for another time, or when you break it down. Okay, what did you do, Neal, to because you reach plateaus. It's like I wrote with this guy that I'm helping, and I use my fitness pal. Okay, I won't let him use it right. All right. And he started to, modifying his food. Right. And then he writes me tonight, I think I got this down. And I said, you know what? This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Right. And you're going to have things along the way, or like, what is a FODMAP study by Hopkins? When I reached an impasse, after COVID, these are things, because your nutrients that you accepted a year ago, as you get older, maybe aren't the same in terms of what they accept moving forward. So, look, if anything I could do, we talked about what we're going to also talk about, test your best, with middle school and elementary school kids in St. Louis. I mean, I told you, I had a great time, in St. Louis, because it woke me up. It woke me up, because I wasn't what I could be. And, there was a picture of me falling asleep in my office. And, listen, um, as embarrassing as that may sound and be, I've learned I need to admit that. I need to be vulnerable. So I encourage people out there that if you're saying, well, I don't have 199 pounds to lose in closing here, or maybe I have 10 or 20 or whatever it is, remember what we talked about earlier. 10 becomes 20, 20 becomes 40, 40 becomes 50. And before you know it, you can't be the person that you deserve to be for all those years that you supported your family, all those years that you went to work, whatever it may be, because at
mm.
the end of the day, it's within yourself. It's within you to do it. And I found that, and I'm thankful that I did.
Neal,
Amen.
once again,
So
from Matt and I, from the bottom of our hearts, I truly mean this. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. This is definitely one of the most eye-opening and awakening episodes we've done. Episode 44 is coming to a close, guys, but we're going to post all your links and everything where people can get a hold of you. Guys, 10 out of 10, I recommend picking up his book. I mean, I'll be buying it myself. I'm
no
sure it's
brainer.
all on
Yeah.
all the platforms to purchase, so I'll be buying it myself. But if you just enjoyed the last hour, this is just the tip of the iceberg about Neal and his story and all the value that he offers. So, guys, if you made it this far, like, share, subscribe. I don't know, whatever you do, man. Message
Yeah,
us if you have any
subscribe to
questions.
my guys.
Yeah, but if we can get anybody in contact with Neal as well, let's say for some reason you can't get a hold of him, message us. We'll gladly get you connected, and I'm sure Neal will be more than happy to help. So, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tonight. Thank you guys for all that you both do. I'm an honor to know both of you. I'm honored to run this podcast with you, Matt. And guys, like I always say, if you don't do anything else, just try to be a little better. Thanks, guys.